Hi guys, and welcome back, and I hope people are looking forward to this video. It's here to celebrate me getting to 5k, something I never believed would happen, and something I'm incredibly proud to be able to say. This is a what if I've been working on and off for a little while now, and something I really have enjoyed writing for and planning out the future parts for. And I'm hoping the enjoyment I found in writing it will hopefully carry over to the enjoyment you guys will have watching it. And this one is a bit more serious than some of my other what ifs, and possibly a bit darker. If that's not your sort of thing, I wanted to warn you now. But that all being said, I hope people enjoy, so let's get going. We start our story with Gohan feeling a sensation of floating nothingness, as if he was weightless in the open water. As he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a green-like liquid, an oxygen mask connected to his face, and looking around, he finds himself in some strange container. But weirdly, he's calm. After looking around for a few seconds, he looks through the sheet of glass containing him to see a room he is unfamiliar with, and a man with really long hair, which is when panic suddenly sets over Gohan. He feels his heart beat in his throat and tears trying to well up in his eyes, but nothing can come out due to being submerged in this liquid, as he begins to struggle for breath, wondering where he is, and more importantly, remembering the last thing he saw, his father battling the man in front of him, Raditz. We jump back to the battle of Goku and Piccolo fighting Raditz. As we watch through a red tinted glass, much like Gohan, he watches as his father is pinned to the floor by Raditz and being beaten badly. Gohan feels a rage he had never felt before take over him, as he then remembers nothing. Not on how the fight ended, or how he ended up in this room, and this just makes him all the more scared, causing the boy to start thrashing around in the water, gaining the attention of Raditz on the outside. The man approaches the glass, staring into the water, looking at his nephew with a sinister smile across his face. Gohan feels panic like never before, as he tries to do anything, but all he can do is watch as his biological uncle presses some buttons on a panel on the side of the machine he's in, causing the green liquid to drain out, making the child drop to the floor, as the tears which had once tried to escape his eyes now begin to run down his face, as he screams out asking where his father is, all the while crawling towards the back of the pod, trying to evade getting caught by Raditz. However, his screams go unnoticed by Raditz, who just ignores them, reaching in and grabbing the boy by the shoulder, pulling him out and telling him that he has become a member of the Frieza Force. So, from now till the rest of his miserable life, he will serve the Emperor. So, he better start acting more Saiyan-like, unless of course he wants to end up like the rest of the people on that backwards planet he was born. The comment goes unnoticed by Gohan though, completely going over his head, as the boy screams out and cries for his mother or father to come and get him, and once again more tears run down the boy's face, but Raditz this time moves his hand to the boy's throat, pulling him out of the pod and slamming him aggressively against the wall, causing cracks to form where Gohan's back had impacted it. Gohan cries out in fear and pain as Raditz leans in close to Gohan with crazed look in his eyes, telling the boy that no one is coming for him. Gohan cries out that's not true, his father will come for him. He's the strongest man on Earth. But before that sentence can be completed, Raditz squeezes down on Gohan's throat, causing the boy to stop and struggle to breathe for air. Raditz goes on to explain that his father might have been the top dog on Earth, but out in the galaxy, he was small fry. Gohan, confused, struggles for breath and tears running down his face. He says that Raditz is wrong, his daddy and mummy will come for him. The boy clearly desperately trying to hang on to something, as Raditz looks the boy in the eye, more deranged than ever before. He says that it's possible for his parents, they possibly could save him, if they found a way to pull themselves out of the graves he buried them in. Finally, the scared face of Gohan turns to twisted horror, as Raditz realizes the kid had put it all together. He gets nice and close to Gohan's ear, as he whispers, explaining how he is the sole survivor of planet Earth. Everyone else on that backwards planet is dead, killed by his own hands. From the bold old man to his own mother, he killed every single one of them, and he took extra time in killing his mother and father, describing in great detail how his mother begged for her life, but he didn't listen. Then His pitiful father fought to the end with everything he had, but it was pointless. Not a single blow that weakling Kakarot landed was enough to even draw blood, but Raditz was generous enough to honour him with a true Saiyan death, dying in the middle of combat. As tears continue to race down Gohan's face, all the while his over-analytic brain tries to make sense of it, trying to figure out if this is a nightmare, trying to figure out if Raditz is lying, trying to do anything, but all he can think of is his father and mother being dead. And while Gohan is in this state of shock, Raditz tells Gohan that at this point in time he is a tool to be used to complete missions and help him achieve his ultimate goal of getting revenge on those who wronged him. But to do that, he must refine his tool, so to speak, helping his nephew achieve some amazing power. But before Gohan can utter a single word or even have a thought, he feels an incredible pain shoot throughout his whole body, as Raditz had slammed his fist directly into Gohan's chest, an attack which nearly rips through the boy completely, as Gohan collapses to the floor, seeing nothing but darkness, as his eyes are suddenly overloaded by a bright light. As he looks around, he finds himself on Mount Paozu. He's confused, and he sighs in relief, thinking it all to have been a terrible nightmare. Seeing his house off in the distance, he realises he had wandered too far, running forward. But just before he can get to his house, just inches before he can open the door, he stops by a wall of force he cannot see and cannot move. He stares blankly at his house, watching his mother cook in the window. He screams out to her, trying to get her attention, but it's like he's not even there, as she does not respond to anything he does. It is only when Raditz starts slowly approaching the house that the woman responds, as she moves out of sight from the window, disappearing off into the house. Gohan tries desperately to get through this wall, this barrier, whatever's stopping him, but nothing can move it. And as Raditz passes by Gohan, easily passing through whatever is blocking him, he enters the house, and the sounds of blood-curdling screams can be heard coming from it. Gohan can only sit and listen and cry out for his mother, and after a few moments of screaming, the whole mountain falls silent, and out walks Raditz, covered in blood, which Gohan knows isn't his own. Gohan feels himself slipping, feeling the rage that had consumed him back in that pod overtake him once more, as he screams with the rage of 1,000 Ozarus, causing the world around him to shatter into nothingness, as he awakens in the same pod he was in before. However, this time, a sapphire blue aura crackles and jolts off and around him, causing the pod he's floating in to explode. Gohan lands on his feet, feeling a rage like he had never felt before, and before he can do anything, Raditz rushes into the room to find Gohan having destroyed the machine, and better yet, stare him down with a more Saiyan-like look in his eyes. Before he can even open his mouth, however, Gohan has jumped straight towards Raditz, slamming his fist directly into the man's face, screaming out how he will kill him for everything he has done. The older Saiyan's body ragdolls and flies straight backwards through a wall, ending up on the outside of the base, where Raditz begins to fly to try and stop his momentum, and after trying to do so for a few seconds manages to. As he stares back at the base he was just launched out of, he can't help but smile like a psycho when looking back at the building. As he races back into the building faster than ever before, he lands directly in front of Gohan, who stands ready to fight, but Raditz stops this newfound resolve by quickly and effectively landing one swift punch firmly into Gohan's chest, this time not holding back at all, causing Gohan to feel all of his bones on the inside crunch under the power as he coughs up blood, falling to the floor, and the anger which once consumed him fades away as the pain begins to become overbearing. Raditz, seeing that Gohan has achieved some amazing power, believes it's now time. Throwing some Saiyan armor down to the ground, he tells the boy to change and get ready for the first mission he has him on. The boy can't even comprehend standing at the minute, yet alone changing clothes, but the fear of Raditz once again delivering such a powerful and brutal blow causes him to comply, weakly standing and changing outfits as tears begin to well back up in his eyes. He tries so damn hard to fight back against crying, not only from the pain he's in, but from the dream he was forced to watch, and after fully changing clothes, he is ordered by Raditz to follow him. The boy has no idea how he's going to do it, but by biting his tongue and almost crawling, he follows Raditz all the way out to a set of pods which look like the ones he had been trapped in on Earth. As he remembers watching his father get beaten black and blue on the ground, he feels that rage once again start to bubble over, but the pain he feels where he had been hit, the feeling like his ribs have been broken, causes that rage to subside. Raditz had noticed Gohan's power starting to spike, and then noticed it drop dramatically. He quickly asks the boy if he needs to be taught a lesson once again, but Gohan whimpers that he doesn't, promising to follow any orders Raditz gives, not wanting to be hurt any more than he already has been. Raditz, happy to see that Gohan's a quick learner, tells the boy to climb into the pod and set in a set amount of coordinates. Gohan does so reluctantly, climbing in and closing the door, which brings back terrible memories of watching his father be beaten bloody on the ground. He can't help but cry now, out of Raditz's eyesight, and taking this moment to himself. He's so scared and doesn't know what to do, and this rage he's feeling is like nothing he has ever felt before. He's scaring himself, and worst of all, Raditz isn't showing a single ounce of care. All he seems to care about is using Gohan for whatever he wants him for. And for a second, Gohan considers maybe setting in different coordinates, escaping, but realises that Raditz could probably stop and or catch him before he ever got far enough, and all that would lead to is more punishment and more pain. So, when Raditz gives the orders of what coordinates to put in, Gohan follows, calmly doing so, and allowing the natural hibernation which happens in trips like this to happen, hoping to escape to his dreams, only to learn they will haunt him even more, as he watches his mother and father killed over and over and over again, each time at the hands of Raditz. The boy can't handle it, and sometimes feels rage bubble, even grow to the point where it feels like it's going to burst. However, when this happens, it's as if his body disallows him from letting out that rage, disallows him from letting out that trauma, all in order to protect him from destroying the one thing keeping him from deep space. And after what feels like years of travel to the sleeping Gohan, they soon arrive on a planet in the middle of a forest, with Gohan climbing out of the machine he believes is almost a torture device, as he can't help but just stare at the ground. But something had come to Gohan while he was travelling. Maybe the fact that he dreams of them, maybe the idea that he's never actually seen their dead bodies and had only ever seen Raditz kill them through his dreams, means they're still out there, meaning he could hold out hope. But that slowly faded over time, and then now it's just a fleeting dream to Gohan. But it makes looking at the man who haunts his dreams a little bit easier, as the pair don't share a word, sitting in silence in the middle of this forest for the better part of 20 minutes, before two more pods crash on the planet only a mile away. As Raditz sees this, he announces that the others have arrived and tells Gohan to follow him. As Raditz starts flying away, Gohan has no idea what to do. So, with no other options, he runs after the man, shocked to find he is hundreds, maybe thousands of times faster than he ever was before, maybe even faster than his dad was. And for a split second, the idea of running off into the forest and disappearing comes to Gohan, but he just realises that he would have nowhere to go after that. He would be stuck in a forest on an alien planet. He has no idea where he is. And worst of all, even if he was to survive on this alien planet, it wouldn't take long for Raditz to find him, and then the punishment for that would be severe. After running for what feels like only a couple of minutes, but having covered a lot of ground, Gohan is shocked to see Raditz talking to two people who wear similar armour to himself, and hearing the tail end of a conversation. Something about Raditz having a plan to take down someone called Frieza, but when Gohan appears out of the shrubbery, they all look at him, before the biggest one laughs aloud at the sight of the boy, asking if this is the amazing thing Raditz had to show off. Approaching the child, he says that the boy couldn't be older than 5, so how is this impressive? As he goes to scruff the boy's hair in a aggressive way, Gohan's body reacts on its own, as if going into survival mode, as he quickly dodges the grab and bites down on the Big Saiyan's arm, biting with all of his might, forcing the big man to shake his arm violently to get Gohan off his arm. But at that point, Gohan had already drawn blood. But soon Gohan drops out of this survival instinctive driven mode, as he's just left wondering what happened and why he can taste iron in his mouth. The kid quickly wipes at his mouth to see blood, causing him to be shaken quite a bit. But as he does this, the big man he had just bit laughs loudly, saying how the boy is definitely a Saiyan, that's for sure, as the big man reaches out a hand the size of Gohan, with a warm smile covering behind it. He offers to shake Gohan's hand as an introduction. Gohan, seeing the warm smile and almost not being intimidated by the man, offers up his hand, before he suddenly feels his entire arm getting crushed by the giant oath, as he begins to pick the boy up into the air, as Gohan can only sit and squirm, trying to get his arm free, feeling as if it's about to be broken, with the giant man releasing his grip after a couple of seconds, just before he had broke Gohan's arm, telling the kid now they are even with a laugh. As Gohan is introduced to the other two Saiyans, the smaller one with spiky hair being Prince Vegeta, who only scoffs at the boy before reading something called his power level, muttering out the number 900, making the prince shake his head and tell Raditz the kid is a waste of time, as that one flies off heading towards a different location. The bigger man, who he had bit earlier, is introduced as Nappa, and he can't help but be impressed with the kid having such a high power level at such a young age. So he gives the kid a bit of advice, telling him to pull his weight and not drag them down, or else he'll have to kill him, before he also flies off. Gohan, scared and nervous like never before, looks towards Raditz, trying to get some form of comfort, to only be met by a cold glare, telling the child all he needs to know. Raditz then goes on to explain to the child the mission, and Gohan's heart sinks at the idea of what he has to do, learning that the mission is to kill all inhabitants on the planet, then gift it to Lord Frieza. Gohan, hearing this, thinks there's a chance of escape, thinking that if he could find someone willing to help him in one of these cities when he's alone, it might allow him to get a ship out of this planet, maybe heading back home. Maybe someone knows where Earth is. But before Gohan can even complete this thought, Raditz shares that due to it being Gohan's first mission, he'll be watching over him to make sure he completes it fully and successfully. As Raditz turns on his scouter, Gohan feels his heart drop even lower. The plan he had, the in the moment decision he could have made, feels like it was completely shattered, as Raditz points in a direction, telling the boy to follow him. However, Gohan stands still, having lost that fire in his eyes as Raditz looks at him, making Raditz annoyed, having thought Gohan had learnt his lesson from the first time, but instead he has to push the kid again, telling Gohan that if he doesn't follow him, he will have a beating like no other, to the point where Gohan would wish he was dead. Gohan feels his blood run cold at the idea of a beating so bad, so he nods his head, agreeing to follow his uncle, and after running for a while they come across a city in the distance, where his uncle Raditz tells Gohan to go destroy and kill anyone who he sees. Gohan is clearly reluctant, and Raditz, having enough of this kid's hesitation, decides to give him a little bit of a push, by kicking him at full strength straight through a building. Luckily for Gohan, he easily breaks through it thanks to his newfound power. Also luckily he hits no one as he cuts through the building, but it alerts any capable fighter to his arrival. As Raditz lands on a building not too far away to watch the fight, he sees multiple people rush towards Gohan, going to attack him at first. Gohan tries to plead with them to help him out. He doesn't want to hurt or kill anyone, but none of them listen, thinking it to be some kind of Saiyan trick, having already got reports from other cities of two Saiyans destroying everything in sight. As they all begin to fight trying to kill Gohan, the boy's instincts once again kick in, as he soon starts fighting back, feeling that rage that was once bubbling up inside of him start to grow once more. As the fight first begins, it's clear he lacks any sort of combat training whatsoever, but as Gohan begins to get hit more and more, and the rage begins to bubble more and more, Gohan's skills begin to develop much faster. He quickly learns to fight more effectively, managing to take down a few opponents. As Gohan's rage and power begins to increase throughout the entire fight, Gohan eventually comes out the victor. He is beaten bloody and pretty badly. Gohan can feel every attack that was landed on him surge throughout his whole body, as he is covered in his own blood, having not yet realised it. He hears the sound of metal being kicked, and shaken from the battle still, he turns around, holding a ki blast in his hand, only to see a mother and a child hugging and hiding out of the sight of Gohan. The boy for a moment stops, looking at his own hands, looking at his gloves stained in blood which isn't his, remembering everything he had just done in that battle, and then imagining the dream he saw of his mother being murdered by Raditz. He shakes as tears well in his eyes, the rage that was bubbling before disappearing, As he drops the ki blast from his hand, he looks at the family, tries to utter the words to warn them to run, but no sound escapes before a giant purple beam engulfs the pair, completely killing them and levelling a large chunk of this city. Gohan falls to his knees, staring down at the crater in front of him where the family once stood. He's left speechless and staring into the giant hole, and as he stares, he hears the sound of footsteps approaching, but they're too heavy to be anyone other than Raditz, as the man begins to speak, saying how he's a bit disappointed in his nephew for not finishing off the fight properly, as a cry of pain is heard and Gohan's whole body flinches up as he hears Raditz finishing off the people he didn't kill in the fight. Gohan tries so hard to ignore the noise, knowing his mind and body are well past their limits, and knowing that if he was to attack Raditz now, he would likely die or just be beaten to a bloody pulp. But when the last fighter begs for his life, pleading for him to be allowed to live, explaining how he wants to see his family one last time, followed by a promise from Raditz that he will see them when they join him in the afterlife, then the loud sound of a boot meeting flesh is heard, and a skull crunching sound which echoes throughout Gohan's mind. This is the final straw for the boy, as he snaps, screaming out in pain, not only physical but emotional. The boy's been pushed to his breaking point, as he screams with rage and sadness in his eyes. The entire planet underneath Gohan begins to shake. The city around Gohan crumbles and collapses around his power as it continuously rises. The sound of all scouters on the planet beat louder than ever before. As Gohan's power increases, Raditz sits there smiling as the number in his scouter continuously rises, far surpassing anything Raditz had ever hoped for, all the while knowing he had achieved his goal. As Vegeta and Nappa can't help but be stunned at the power they are reading, assuming that it must be a fault in the system, but with the planet shaking they aren't sure. Gohan finally looks up, looking towards his uncle. His eyes have lost all hint of innocence and wonder. They're now filled with hatred and rage like never before. That being reflected by his new aura. A blood red light wraps around Gohan, as if tainted by the blood he was once covered in. Gohan stares down Raditz, furious. He has watched him kill innocents, people who didn't deserve to die. And it all comes together now. If Raditz could kill these people without hesitating, there is no way he didn't kill everyone on Earth. With the fury he has never felt before, Gohan howls out how he will kill Raditz for everything he had done, and everyone he had hurt, even if it takes him 100 years. A threat which echoes throughout the entire planet, and unnerves Raditz, who takes a step backwards at his newly formed nephew, as he sits there watching the scouter continuously beat upwards, as Raditz fears for his own life once again in the span of only 4 months. He stands there, almost accepting death, but as his nephew goes to move, Gohan's body finally gives out. He had taken a lot more damage than he had realised throughout the fight. Alongside his unchecked injuries given to him by the other Saiyans, his body finally gives out on him, making him pass out on the floor, with his power dropping dramatically as he does so. Raditz sits there before falling backwards, scared for his life, but he can't shake the smile on his face, knowing this kid is the key he was looking for. And as the scouter on his head continuously beeps with the ever-dropping power of Gohan, Raditz thinks back to everything of what happened on Earth, as the beeping of the scouter becomes more rhythmical, as we are shown a heart rate monitor, monitoring someone with a relatively unstable heartbeat, with sharp spiky hair covering part of the monitor. But that's all we have time for on this part. I hope everyone enjoyed this, as I enjoyed writing for it. Sorry it was a bit dark for some people, but I felt like doing something a bit more serious, and I might have gone too far in, I have no idea. If that's the case, I do apologise, but this is just how it happened to be, and this is actually me having rewritten it, so I don't know. If that all being said, I hope people enjoyed, and I hope you all have a great day or good night, and hopefully I'll see you next time.